Hello, everyone. Happy November. And at the time of this recording, it is Veterans Day. So we definitely want to honor and salute all of the men and women in our armed forces, and very grateful for you today and every day. It is also No November. So that's a catchy little phrase that's been going on and really kind of themed to our topic this month. And what does that even mean, right? Like a lot of you guys are working inside organizations full time, some capacity, or even external folks, right? Like, well, if the client needs something, like, how do we say no to them? So really what it is about preserving your energy and really kind of seeking, what are the people, places, and things that may be depleting some of that energy. And of course, we as humans have to really honor that and appreciate, like, all right, is this worth the energy drain or not worth it? And that's the journey of life, right? And so, well-being at the cornerstone of Rediscover Radiance, and especially this month and today, we are very pleased to introduce Sonja Olson. She is a doctor in veterinary medicine, and she is currently the founder and solopreneur of Heartstorming Wellness. I had the great privilege of meeting Sonja just a couple years ago in a professional capacity, and I got such a front eye kind of moment of, wow, veterinarians, they have such an incredible amount of work that they do, passion and commitment. And I never realized how many were struggling with mental health and the need to have very evidence-based scientific practices, social workers on site, well-being specialists to go in, provide education to really support our our veteran vets, right? So veterinary medicine. And so Sonja is world renowned for this. She goes globally, she speaks, and she's also an author. And again, I had the privilege to meet with her, and you guys are going to see in just a moment, just her whole essence is so calming. Every time I talk to Sonja, it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, let's recenter, let's get it together. So couldn't think of anyone better to bring in for this session. You guys are going to be in for a treat. Of course, Lizzy, co-host here. Want to say hi to the folks, Lizzy? Hey.
Hey
All right,
everyone.
let's go ahead and get underway here. Sonja, we're talking about No November. We're talking about wellness. We're talking about professionals, people, really, right? Their journey in life. What points have led you to certain places?
Mhm.
What have you said yes to? What have you said
Yeah.
no to? And what have been some of those kind of outcomes that have occurred?
One of the most valuable things I learned about as I go through understanding boundaries for myself and as I support conversations around boundary drawing, you cannot have fulfillment. You cannot have self care moments and reset, which is essential. I really don't care what human doing you have in the world. Your human being needs reset. It needs moments of reflection, of integration, of learning. This is essential. And folks, there's no way to make room for that without saying no. Because in the saying of no, there could be qualified no's. It doesn't have to be a hard, fast no. It could be not now, not just me. Ask me again. But creating no's allows room for the yeses that matter. And then you can bring yourself more fully in a really quality way, an authentic way, aligned with your values and your most energized, optimized self to your yeses. So I think that's a really beautiful way of reframing our ideas about the discomfort and the awkwardness, that guilt, of saying no. Yeah. Letting people down. I shouldn't. Other people have it harder. My team, all the stuff. All the stuff. However, folks are also watching you, particularly if you're a leader. Such an important space to model what healthy no and healthy yes looks like.
Wow, I love that. One of the things that you said that really touched me is that when we say no, we make space for the yeses that matter. I think that's very powerful because our, For me, when I think about times where I'm struggling to say no, I'm kind of in a fight or flight mode, right? I feel like I want to say no, but I get stuck in this fear mindset of, well, if I say no, then this will happen, that will happen, that will happen, right? And it's like in the flash, it's not like I'm thinking this or premeditating this, but it's just a feeling that I'm having and these thoughts that are racing through my mind. So, Sonja, when you say making room for yeses that matter, how have you done this? How did you get there to that truth?
Beautiful question. And I love your vulnerability and authenticity around, oh, look at all these feelings that are showing up. So, welcome to being human and welcome to being a woman. That in the world, you are expected, and we expect of ourselves in many instances, to make room for and to say yes in your personal and your professional life. It's true. So, I want to make certain that we're also just shouting out to the audience, it's okay to feel awkward. It's one of those things like doing bicep, curls in the gym. You got to practice with those feelings, practice with your words. If you know that there are certain things that you're awkward around, do the reading, do the prep, practice with a trusted colleague or friend so that you can say, I've got this conversation coming up. I want to think through this so that you can regulate those emotions. Take those deep breaths to bring in that parasympathetic system to calm that sympathetic drive, then offer. And relax around the outcome because sometimes the outcome is one that you hadn't thought of. There might be a discovery process that occurs that you come across this compromise and it's not compromising of your values. It's a compromise that works because sometimes there needs to be a qualified no or a qualified yes. And I feel like that's a really important space, so much gray. In the world, though, when we feel clear on our non negotiables, whether that is your health, whether that is your family and your children, whether that is your partner or your pets, as a veterinarian, you can see one of my little guys behind me. So these are the non negotiables. You'll feel pretty clear about your no. You can do it very professionally and respectfully. No, thank you. No, not right now. My plate is full. I appreciate you asking, but no, period. It's also a full sentence. You don't have to explain. You don't have to apologize. There are times where it was not yet clear to me how to say those no's. It took practice and it took me really realizing what saying yes to everything, but the consequences really. I think we've all experienced that where you've overextended, you're lean and you're exhausted. Yeah. So I did that multiple times. And fortunately, I had mentors older than I, more experienced in life, that said, Sonja, repeat after me. No. They were just saw me really. I just wanted to show up. I was excited. I was growing and learning, and I'm forever a learner. So I lean into those spaces. However, you've got to make sure that you've got the brain space and the energy for it. So it does take some experience of life. It really helps to have trusted folks around you to say, hey, how are you doing? Are you sure you want to take that on? So pivots around my emergency medicine work, learning to draw some boundaries around reset and rest was really, really important. That took time for me to understand what it felt like to feel trashed before I gave myself permission to say, you know what, I can't keep doing this sustainably if I don't make room for rest. And for the rest of my life, I'm giving from an empty tank. No good. So when you recognize the consequences, and those consequences matter to you, you're going to feel a little bit more confident in your nose. So there's been spaces like that that I tune in. How am I feeling about this? Right? And if you're feeling unsure, talk it out. Talk it out with somebody and you'll hear the answer. You'll know just in your talking of how to approach that conversation.
Yeah. Sonja, that is so spot on. And, I know in my career as well, and as I'm working with leaders, right, that is like really one of the number one areas that they want to improve and focus on is like, how can I learn to say no more effectively without coming off as not a team player or rude or. And, I think the reality is that some of the fear is not founded. Some of the fear is real. So when we think about corporate organizations or environments in which someone is saying no, thank you, period. And it has some consequences in the workplace. How would you, and maybe you have an example, I don't know about your kind of professional journey that you've had where you kind of said no, thank you, and it led to something unexpected and contrary to what the advice is of saying no.
Well, what comes to my mind, so as I've pivoted out of the clinical environment, which I have, I did emergency overnight work for over 20 years, which was amazing, really. I mean, but there's a shelf life to doing overnights on the body. Your body physiologically can only take that for a certain amount of time. I pivoted into the role that was daytime, and it allowed me to really focus on health and well-being for our veterinary professionals. That was the next room of opportunity for me to really bring healing and empowerment to folks with knowledge and skill building. So I'm new to that environment. I'm trying to make a name for myself. So it's a big yes fest. It's a big yes fest happening. It's like, yes, I'll take that opportunity. Yes, I'll do that for free. Yes, oh my God, so much that, well, that you both know, entrepreneurs, yes fest. You want to show up, you want to be involved, you want to be counted on as available. And there's all that fear if I say no, will they circle back to me? Will I be considered somebody who's really invested in this space? So once again, I recognized I was overextending and I said no. But I want to share with you something. There's power to no. I was like, I'm just saying no. I'm done with a pro bono. I've done my stint. I'm ready to start asking for my worth. Thank you. I'm not doing it for free anymore. So I said no. And I waited. And this is just recent. This is uncomfortable, guys. This is me practicing my no in this new space. And they asked, would there be a certain amount of money that I would say yes to the opportunity? I was like, well, I'm so glad that you asked. And I was reasonable about it. I said, what is your budget? Which is a very helpful question. Tell me more about your budget. Tell me more about what it is that you're wanting from me, and let's figure it out. And we did. And I'm very proud of myself for that no. That was a really recent one and a challenging one. And the outcome was what I hoped, was that somebody would say, oh, we should take her a little more seriously. She takes herself seriously. Hmm. Lean into your worth.
I love that. I love that. That brings up something that I had noticed in the workplace in being, of the, I'll say older millennial. I'm not like young millennial, but let's just say older millennial generation, and witnessing Gen Z coming to the workforce. Okay, because I have some young women on my team who are phenomenal, and they inspire me because they have learned how to say no. From an early age, they've learned how to do that, and they're bringing into the workforce, and they're able to say no. And I have one woman on my team, and she has successfully set her boundaries in terms of work-life balance. And I just really appreciate that, and I appreciate how that is impacting the overall work environment with some of the younger generations coming in. But it did make me evaluate my ability to say no. And it's inspired me to even start to say no to certain things and saying yes to the work life balance of that. And I remember when she was first explaining to me, her boundaries and saying no. And on the outside, I was encouraging her, and I was like, yeah, that's great. You go and, you do that. But on the inside, I was actually kind of scared for her. Like, is this going to work? How is this going to turn out? How is she going to be perceived in the workplace? And so, that really gave me an eye opening even to the generational differences between, women in the workplace and their ability to say no. And I've even witnessed how other women in the workplace respond to her ability to say no. And so that has been an interesting something interesting that I'm starting to see play out. And when you are a woman who can say no, sometimes that is met with enthusiasm and appreciation and respect from other women. But then sometimes there's those old school thoughts, even from within, our mentors, right? Where they're like, oh no, honey, you're never going to get ahead if you don't do X, Y, and Z. And so it just presents this interesting dynamic that I'm seeing play out right now in the entrepreneur world, in the professional world, all throughout. It doesn't matter what you do. So I guess, Sonja, what would you say, for someone like me who's kind of in the middle of these two schools of thought where, the people who have mentored me have had that philosophy of you have to pour yourself in, oh, you have to work over, you have to. And then this new generation of, no, I'm not doing that. Why would I do that? How someone like me on the fence, how do I embrace this new idea yet have this balance between these two ideologies? It's such a difficult place to be in.
It is.
What do you suggest?
I love this. This is a welcome to another really interesting time in history. We have almost 6 generations in our workforce right now. Can you imagine people that are coming from so many different times and spaces and ideas and technological capabilities, understanding about what it is to do work and their worth in the world and their identity? The millennials were really probably one of the last generations to really be tethered to your work is your worth and your identity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's shifting. And it feels really awkward and uncomfortable for us to go, but wait a minute. If that's true, well, then who am I? So let's get clear what's happening. Our own identity is being challenged in these conversations. It's what we've come to believe about ourselves and the world. And then you have these other generations growing up with other ideas. And it's going to be different culturally around the world. Let's also be aware of that. However, I feel like it's an opportunity for us as individual people in our space to really reflect upon, why do I believe what I believe? What is this story? What's true? What is the possibility of me even shifting? And this younger person being a mentor to me. I love bi-directional learning with mentees and mentors. And we also have a responsibility to teach, to encourage, to provide adulting framework in the world to those that don't yet know. So there is a happy balance without being pushy or preachy about it, encouraging those to understand that there is, in fact, a way of bringing in a way of showing up and of responsibility and accountability. It's not a bad word. Accountability is not a bad word. So showing up as someone who is of quality work and experience, that's important to folks, whatever generation you're in. Quality work experience, and you know me. These are my values, this is my integrity, and you can count on me for this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's a conversation internally and then externally. So I think I'm even removing that life, and I'm switching it. I switched it to life work balance, but there is no such thing. There is life work integration. Boof, toss it. Welcome to your life. Just welcome to your life. I mean, it's really when we talk about wellness, there's a realm of 8 realms of the wellness wheel they talk about. We are not just one thing. And at any one given in time, wellness will show up in different ways. We're investing energy in different ways. Let's not get so focused on just our occupational wellness. Let's really think about our holistic wellness for ourselves, for our teammates and our colleagues and the people we care about. Asking questions. When's the last time do you have a financial advisor? When's the last time you saw your doctor? Hey, I'm just curious. When's the last time you actually went out for a coffee break with your friends? When's the last time you moved your body and you really felt good about the way that you were feeling strong and able? So just asking those questions for yourself as well as of each other, that's how we reach this idea of thriving in our lives, not just surviving.
Love that.
Mm.
Sonja, you are bringing up so many gems here, and the welcome to your life is so important. Now I'm a little older than Lizzy, right? I'm a Gen X, and those principles were tried and true. You work hard, you put on all the hours, you're going to climb yourself right on up to the top. And to be frank with you, I had a welcome to your life moment, right? This is kind of part of the story of why Lizzy and I kind of got back together and thought about a podcast is I'm coming up on a year where my heart literally stopped. My heart stopped and I didn't know why. And the doctors ran all the tests. This was December the 8th. They let me go home with a temporary heart monitor. Never had any health issues a day in my life. And I had another event. I had 4 total times where my heart stopped. I could have not woken up. And I say this to really emphasize that please don't make it a cardiac event. Please don't make it a huge, especially with cardiac health, right? I'm not a cardiologist here, but I do know that women, especially are susceptible to heart conditions. And guess what? The first time you know you have a heart condition, your heart stops, like I did. And that's a really big deal. And talk about a wake up call. What's your wake up call going to be? At what point
Mm-hmm.
be there? And I will tell you that I feel that I have always been an advocate of work-life balance, work-life integration. I love what I do, so it is part of my soul. It is a part of my being. But really stepping aside and understanding that that moment where your your worth is contingent on other people and the toll that that takes on your body, it's really incredible when you talk about that parasympathetic nervous system and the fight or flight. And these are scientifically proven. Even just setting a good intention for yourself, like we did just before the recording here, and really taking that deep breath in and saying, okay, regardless the outcome, I'm not attached to it.
Yeah.
Someone my coaching education has taught me too. I'm not attached to it, and really paying attention to what everyone can really provide on your team, your care team, your life team, right? It's not just your work team. It's not just your friend team or your family team. It's the integration. And I've just been so fortunate to be able to learn from health coaches, from my acupuncturist, from my cardiologist, from my rheumatologist. And I'm very happy to say that that fight or flight, it's not gone totally, but it is working its way through. And I just want to kind of do that call out that your diet, your nutrition, your overall wellness, that can look very different for different people. You have to focus on it. I mean, it's really critical in so many ways, and it doesn't even have to be life and death, right? Like you're probably like, okay, that's never going to happen to me, and God bless, I hope it never does. What I will say though is that everybody deserves to be happy and healthy. So I'd like to offer kind of a little contrarian view, if you will. We talk a lot about, bring your whole self to work. And while I'm an advocate of that, absolutely, there's the other side of that. Businesses need people walking in the same direction, right? Like if your boss asks you to do something that's really critical to the mission or some major goal that's trying to be accomplished and you say no, that's not great for business. That's not great for anything. Absolutely with you. I built my business around knowing your strengths and your values and alignment and all of that great stuff. And maybe in the short term, you might have to say yes. In the longer term, you're really going to have to evaluate, is that serving you? Is that something that's filling your bucket?
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a lot about women and their journeys. Regardless what generation bucket they're in. I'd also like to bring up men in the workplace or people who don't have gender assignment or just people in general, right? Because there's some foundational needs that us
Mm-hmm.
as people have. And so I'm curious, Sonja, what work you've done. Obviously, you've worked with all genders. What would you say is similarities and differences when it comes to saying no and empowering people to kind of live in their truth, but also contribute to the society and get things done, right?
Feel like there's a book in that, I have to say. I mean, because there are books, by the way. Joy Gaston Gales wrote a book called The Art of Saying No. Great book. So what you're bringing forward is what's it like to be in different human packages and different life experiences, and how does that then impact your comfort level, your preparation and your view of your ability to show up in the world as somebody who is worth investing in and having on the team. Boy, there is so much in there. That's a really complex situation, Karen. And I don't know that I could answer it quickly, except to say you brought up some other things that are really, really important. Values alignment, mission alignment, creating psychological safety, huge. Number one, there's research that has demonstrated that is the number one value that needs to be present on all teams, regardless of the business, for you to have an effective and productive team. 100%. So for those that don't fully understand psychological safety, it's showing up and taking interpersonal risks without fear of punitive action, humiliation, or consequences. You can ask questions, you can push status quo, you can have collaborative problem solving conversations. Brene Brown is a ninja around all of this. I mean, so her Dare to Lead podcast and her website has just a slew of resources to upskill. Adam Grant is another one. He's an organizational psychologist out of Wharton. So these are individuals that provide resource toolboxes. Amy Edmondson is one of the psychological safety researchers. She's also got an amazing website full of opportunities. How do I build a team that's psychologically safe? What are the questions I can ask? What are the values building and aligning exercises that we can have as a team? Hey, do those together. Maybe call in coaches and facilitators that are skilled in these spaces so that you can really align your team. So I know, Karen, you have all sorts of strategies around this, right? You've studied this. And Lizzy, I'm betting that you have all sorts of strategies around this to bring towards your teams. I do. We each have things that we can offer to facilitate teams that are figuring their ways forward. But the reason I bring psychologically safe environments forward means that you can work your way around, I understand that no is not available right now. So what does a qualified yes look like? How can we find our way there together that meets the needs of the business and the team? And to a degree, I feel like I was heard and appreciated and understood enough that I'm not resentful about being here.
Mhm.
I think that's just a beautiful space to explore.
Yeah. Yeah, that brings up so much because there's a lot of feelings and things like that are going on in this time, a lot of uncertainty that's going on in this time and in the business climate in general. And so sometimes things do go a direction that you wish that they weren't going that direction, and we find ourselves in an environment where, okay, maybe the business is going this direction, where we that's an unexpected turn, that's an unexpected twist, and
Mhm.
so that makes us have to reevaluate our yeses, our nos, what is going to be the impact of that. But Karen, as you were speaking, just about the experience for anyone, and no matter what walk of life that they're in, what I was feeling is that it kind of goes back to some of the things that we've been talking about prior on Rediscover Radiance. It's nothing is set in stone, and sometimes when we find ourselves having to say no in those boundaries, we're not able to get those healthy boundaries. I think the question there is, am I in the right place for this
Mhm.
season of my life?
Yeah.
Um, and because sometimes we get in a position where we're comfortable, we're familiar. Maybe we've worked hard at, getting a certain level in the organization, or a certain, we're making a certain revenue with the certain clients that, we're taking on, but then those things start to become what we wanted to be for our good starts to actually become toxic to us. And so I think sometimes we have to say no to our ego in those scenarios. And, maybe being at that particular, leadership level at that point in your life is not good for you. Or, maybe that particular client, even though they're bringing in great, revenue and all of these things, is really not good for you because of what they're expecting in return. So I think for me, as we were talking through that, it just kind of like a light bulb went off. It was like, wait a minute. I think that's where we have to evaluate, is this place bringing out my radiance? Is this client helping to
Mhm.
bring out my radiance? And then have to say no to our ego sometimes, have to say no to something that we value, but may not be of value to
Mm.
us in the long term.
Oh, Lizzie, that is really beautiful. And a couple of things I'm going to just extract from what you were just saying. It's not only ego. I agree with you. That is a very important space to pay attention to. But also, what are you afraid of? What are
Yeah.
you comfortable with? And what are you
Mhm.
settling for?
Yeah.
Oh, sometimes you've outgrown your cocoon and you got to go through the
Yeah.
icky, like metamorphosis stage, and it's uncomfortable and itchy and scary. And oh my goodness, the potential and the
Yeah.
opportunity. I found myself in my career going through burnout several times, and each time I stayed too long, and I knew it. I knew it on the inside, and I had all sorts of justifications. There are two books I want to just bring forward towards you that over the course of the last probably 2 years that I found to be just really helpful in me to like process and integrate the learnings of those and to maybe offer those highlighted lessons. There's the Burnout Challenge by Christina Maslach and Michael Lerner, who are the first ones to really talk about burnout, and they created the Maslach Burnout Inventory, which is used all over the place. It kind of debunked some of the stuff that they created, and they're like, let's take a better look at this and let's talk about what it actually is. It's a mismatch is in their words when we're talking about burnout in the workplace. It's a mismatch of resources, of values, of goals. So rather than making anybody wrong, it's a mismatch. So relax and move on. So I love that. The other that I'm reading right now, that just is a 2024 publication, is Conscious Change. And I'm just starting, I'm about halfway through it. It's a whole body of learning. These are the professors that taught Brene Brown. So it comes from this lens of how do we navigate change management in all these really uncomfortable, important places of our lives, individually and as teams, with a framework to work with. I really highly recommend this read. All sorts of like contextualized storytelling here to say this is how this was used and this was used. Very much enjoying adding this to my toolbox because change is inevitable. Change is uncomfortable and it's necessary to get to the other side of next, right? Next me, next us, we in the world.
Really, really well said. And I love how you've been integrating tips throughout our conversation, and Lizzie always dropping gold too. So it has been an incredible topic conversation that never goes out of style. It's always something that we have to do, just like living and breathing. We just always have to pay attention to. I've even like set an alarm. I know this might sound silly for some of you guys, but I even set an alarm just to like intentionally check in with myself to
Mm-hmm.
say, how's the day going so far? Is this serving me? Is it not serving me? Do I have a lot of energy? Do I have no energy? If I have no energy, what's been happening to support that?
Mm-hmm.
Change that? Am I in the place that I need for the season of my life? I love that mentality. I love
Mm-hmm.
the work integration, right? Not work-life balance, not like, one way or the other, especially with the six generations in the workforce. I had the privilege of attending a leadership symposium over here at Rollins College in Winter Park, and they did such a tremendous job. And I was around, it reminded me how, aside from my own son, I don't really hang out with Gen Zs ever.
Yeah.
Or I
Yeah.
think Alpha is even the one next up. I don't, I of course worked with millennials, and all the way up. And it was so refreshing to hear from them and see them learning and navigating and asking such important questions. And at the end of the day, maybe it's my individualization. I don't know, but at the end of the day, I don't like to bucket people because you could be 18 or 88 and
Yeah.
your viewpoints could align, or they could shade a little bit differently to help you just realize so much more. And at the end of the day, it was funny, like one misnomer that we sometimes have is, oh, the younger generations, right, they just want to text, or they don't want to meet in person or anything like that. And the young man, I mean, he was 20 years old, and he says, oh, it was just so weird to do an interview over Zoom. I just so wish that we could have been together to have a conversation. And it's just,
Mhm.
we
Hmm.
gotta like throw
Yeah.
away those lack of a better word, stereotypes, what have you. Of course, we want to learn about, other people and we want frameworks, right, to help us, but we just can't ever pigeonhole into those. So no matter what your gender, no matter what your age, no matter what your experiences are in life, we all have such value to bring to the table. And that's what I'm so grateful for this year is just the value of being able to focus on what lifts me up, what brings me energy, but most importantly, how am I giving back?
Mm.
Bringing that in a way that is just so congruent to my values, like we're talking about, right? My beliefs. And if this has helped in any way, I mean, I've shared with Lizzie, I was like super vulnerable. People will say, "Oh, Karen, you're so vulnerable all the time." I mean, I've gotten that feedback my whole life. I don't think I've been vulnerable until this last year because I'm
Mm.
vulnerable in a way of creating psychological safety. I feel like that's one of my gifts, right? My skill set. So I hear about everybody else's stuff and can kind of help coach or guide or advise or mentor or whatever they need in the moment. But to really say, hey, this is a different side of me and this is really important. And we are in such a historical time and that you only get we think we only get one shot at this life, right? So really make it work for you. So as we kind of come to a close, I'd just love to ask you once more, is there any other final tips or commentary that you have for us?
I had the pleasure of this last week of being at the inaugural AVMA Veterinary DEIW Summit. And I just want to extend the feelings of compassionate courage to folks out there to really take the time to be real with yourself, to find your people in your community and your spaces where you too can show up and be a voice for those that need voice. Part of this was spending time with kids that were 11 to 14 that maybe are thinking about veterinary medicine. Friends, that's hope embodied. To hear these young ones talk about, oh my gosh, their questions were so beautiful. It filled my heart up these days to hear from voices from all different ages and spaces and bodies that this is how they are showing up in the world and this is what they are hopeful about. And also, this is what they're scared about. So as we go forward, vulnerability, Karen, is us showing up as our whole selves. Let's really lean into understanding what that means for us as individuals in the world today. How can you contribute to the world you want for tomorrow, for yourself, and for the generations behind us? This is the work. It's awkward, it's a little scary. I know it's anxiety producing, and it can also be immensely fulfilling and rich. But show up for your life and show up for other lives around you. So I think that's where I want to leave it. Show up.
Oh, great message. Lizzie, any final comments?
No, I just want to thank you, Sonja. I know that I have some reflection to
Mm.
do and some reading to do on the other side of this, but thank you. I just hope for our listeners that really just take some of these things to heart because this can free you. A lot of the things that we've discussed today have really challenged, some of the things that I've been holding near and dear as truths. Where now I'm like, I'm not really so sure. I'm not really so sure. So definitely I'm in this along with all of you. We'd love to hear what you think. So definitely put some of your ideas and thoughts in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. And Sonja, we just thank you so much for all of the wonderful pearls of wisdom that you've given us today. And thank you as well, Karen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, happy holidays, everyone. And I hope you all finish very healthy and strong and confident in 2024.
And connected.
And connected. Absolutely. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.